I think it is so important, Leon, to actually do not just the physical decluttering, because I think those two are they sort of dovetail into one another, right?
They do.
It's like if you declutter your physical space, whether that is your room, your home, your workspace, your office, or your cubicle even, I feel that instantly you feel that you've got so much control over your physical world and what's happening in your life day to day. Less distractions, you feel in control of all of that, and instantly you want to get more control, because isn't that sort of, doesn't that tie into the feel-good chemicals, the dopamine?
Yes, exactly.
Hey everyone, welcome to the RLT podcast, where we share some real-life tools, tips, and tricks to help you not only discover, but also reach your ultimate goals. Welcome back, boys and girls, to a brand new episode of the Real Life Tips podcast. It's a new week. It's a Monday morning. If you're tuning in fresh, if this is your very first episode that you're listening to, welcome. Welcome to a show that might actually change your life, that might actually change your perspective of success. I'm your host, Mono.
You're joined by Leon as usual. Welcome back, everyone. Get comfortable, grab a coffee. If you're in the car, keep your eyes on the road.
Very important.
As Manu said, this is episode number 44, man. Always awesome to be here recording this for you guys. We actually end up listening to it as well. We try and practice what we preach. So tonight's going to be no different. And it's actually quite crazy. I mean, the last week, Manu and I actually had a chat, and we're like, listen, it feels as if this working from home setup is going to become a big part of our lives. I don't know about your work environment, etc., but our jobs, for example, has now said that, there's 50-50 back to the office, and that's going to be indefinite. So at the moment, we were pretty much recording from like haphazard home-based studios, and we both decided maybe it's time to just tidy up a bit, put away all the extra pages, make things nice and organized, get a nice environment going. And, I actually spent the better half of this week. I actually bought a plant, man. Can you believe it? I bought not a plastic one.
Was it a fake? I was just going to say.
No, not a plastic one. A real plant. And it's still alive. I counted the leaves. I'm going to count those leaves every week. If it increases, good on me. If it decreases, I'll go get a plastic plant. But so it's been nice to set up a proper semi-permanent place in the house that will now be my studio going forward, as well as, my day job and everything and other things that I need to do within this space. But it kind of brings us nicely into the topic that we're going to discuss tonight.
It actually really does. And I mean, just before we get into that, Leon, can I just say that here's a little tip, is that I love plants, and I feel that it brings a nice atmosphere to it. And I went through this exercise, but the difficult part is remembering to water them and to look after them, right? So
but you don't have
plants,
kids,
they
man.
don't do the thing.
I have to water my own physical garden, my kids,
I hear you. So here's a tip, right? I got one of these little succulents, which is actually really low maintenance, man. Like you water it, I don't know, I've watered mine once this year and it still survived, man.
So it's probably surviving on your sweat and tears.
So anyways, no, I absolutely love plants. I don't like fake plants, but sometimes I enjoy the fact that it stays beautiful for a prolonged period of time.
Just wash it with dishwashing liquid and it
but
goes.
there's a little tip, man. But absolutely, I mean, it's one of those weird things that we've been into this whole like COVID pandemic and everything and working from home. A lot of you guys are probably still thinking that, we only worked from home for like the first 4 or 6 or 8 months, and now we're all back to the office. Everything's all back to normal. But for the rest of the crowd that's sitting out there who's like us, working in the tech industry, still working from, it kind of feels like it's become the new norm, and it doesn't look like it's going away. Like we had a look at the COVID stats and recovery rates and stuff in South Africa, and it almost seems like too good to be true. So it almost seems like we're coming out of it now, but still businesses are talking about 50-50 workload. Either you're working from home half week and then going to the office half week, or coming to the office once a month, twice a month, or as needed, and that's becoming quite normal now.
So it kind of makes sense because, I mean, at the moment, if you look at production, it's gone up. Hey? It's been through the roof. There's a couple of studies that's shown production in many businesses has actually increased over COVID because of the amount of time that you can spend at home, because of the fact that you don't need to schedule in travel time. Exactly. In between meetings, you can actually schedule meetings back to back to the point where you actually forget to go to the bathroom sometimes.
Absolutely.
Look,
that's not the topic for today at all.
No.
The topic of today is really physical and mental declutter, which ties in so nicely because looking at not just your workspace at home, maybe your workspace at the office, but also looking at what does your home in general look like physically. It's one of those weird things that sort of creeps up on you over the years. And you start cluttering and hoarding, and it's not intentional at all. But if you don't put a pin in it, it could spiral out of control. You've all seen those shows, Hoarders, I think, which is extreme level. We're not talking about that, right? But tonight's all about, the benefits of physically and mentally decluttering your life, right? Really freeing up your mind to focus on what is important. So we're going to have a look at this from two different angles. We're going to have a look at the benefits of decluttering physically, but also the benefits of decluttering mentally. We're going to, once again, as always, as we're discussing this, have a dedicated portion to this episode where we're going to be touching on some research, some studies that's going to bring a lot of extremely interesting facts to light. And I think we're going to learn a lot from this episode, Leanne. There's so much that I've got to share on this topic. I think there's so much that you can share on this topic as well, because we're both extremely organized in a lot of aspects in life, especially when it comes to physical clutter, right? We constantly want to make sure that the environment that we're sitting in is cleaned up, is organized and all that to a certain extent. But mental clutter, freeing up your mental clutter as well, every now and then looking at how can we free up our minds to focus on the most important things in life.
Yeah, and I actually, to start off with physical decluttering, I think I look at my garage, for example, there's 2 cars stuck in there, but then there's also the better half of 20 years of hoarding stuck in there in several boxes, containers, plastic, Tupperwares, and just several different ways to just stick it in a place because you're not ready to let go of it.
Yeah.
Now, the funny thing is, if you walk in, my neighbor has one of those garages that when you walk in, he's got the 2 cars, he's got his very nice equipment and his tools and everything nice and laid out or in a box, and some of it hanging on the wall, nicely labeled and all that kind of stuff. You just walk into his garage and you think, wow, this dude is organized. And I bet you when he goes into his garage, he doesn't suffocate from anxiety like I do. I promise you.
It's probably nice and tiled out and all of that kind of stuff as well, isn't it?
Yeah, he's got a tile floor. The walls are not exposed concrete. It's actually painted the same color as the house. And I promise you, when I walk into his garage, everything's got a place. I despise the moment that my wife asks me to go and look for this or that we stuck into a box that's now in the garage, because I know I need to mentally prep myself for at least an hour's worth of frustration to go and eventually pull both cars out of the garage and tip over every single container because they're not labeled. There's no any kind of method to the madness. I have to physically go and dig into everything to find the one little thing. We, for example, put our Christmas tree in the garage. Every year, you've got your Christmas tree up, maybe 2 months if you're stretching it, and then it needs to go back somewhere, and it's a huge thing. It doesn't really belong in the house, so we end up putting it in the garage. You would think that's an easy thing to find, right? No, not in my garage. It takes me literally getting the whole place turned upside down just to go and actually find what I'm looking for.
But you just got to do what I do, man. Like, just leave your Christmas tree up all year round. That's like my Christmas tree is still up from last year. And
do what rich people do and buy a new one every year.
No, but literally, like, I still have all of my decorations, everything's still on the Christmas tree from last year, and we're entering.
Hey, you just said you don't like plastic plants.
No,
man.
I hear you. In South Africa, we don't have a choice, Leon. But no, but to give you an idea, we're in what are we, October now? And yeah, so it's nearing Christmas time, and I've got the easiest job this year, man. It's just, actually my girlfriend said, let's just at least change some of the decorations. So I was like, well, you taking it down, I'll help you put the new decorations on, but taking it down, I think sounds like a horrible idea.
Yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to decluttering, that's the garage. So it's kind of almost, it feels like it's okay to be a little bit cluttered in there. Mm-hmm. But I'm the type of person, and my wife knows this very well, and she's actually quite the same. But when the house starts just getting a little bit untidy and there's stuff lying around that's not in its place, I immediately feel agitated. And not agitated in like I can control it and keep it to myself, and I in my own being is irritable.
Yeah.
I start like swearing people and cussing and walking around like really, really, stiff upper lip because the place is just untidy. And it sometimes comes to clutter in that way as well. We're living in the 21st century. Most of our shopping is done remotely and people deliver the stuff. I can't tell you how many boxes eventually piles up in one area of the house.
Yeah.
That for some reason, I tell my wife, let's just throw out the boxes. She's like, nah, but maybe, if it's Christmas time, we might need a box to put it in, or maybe we need a box for the garage again to put stuff in. So let's keep the box. It's clutter, and I get so, it's almost like I'm suffocating and I'm getting anxious.
Yeah.
And my best way to get rid of anxious is to show it out and literally share it with everyone and start cussing and screaming at everyone.
That's the crazy part though, is and that's looking at it from a physical perspective, but also looking at it from a mental perspective. I think that happens to us so often, and I think it's almost more subtle. It's almost more hidden away from the surface of what it is that we're experiencing and going through in our daily lives. Is that you can walk into your house, you can see the physical clutter. You can walk into your garage, you can see the physical clutter, and that could agitate you, right? Or frustrate you. But I think a lot of us are walking around with so much mental clutter as well. Your worries, stresses, things that are constantly piling up, things on your to-do list that are just not getting done, I think frustrates me as well, that you keep moving it out, it out. Things like filing taxes and just filing in general, or admin in general, or just the basic things that we need to do in our daily lives, to the grocery shopping, and then maybe there's a tire that needs to get replaced on the car, or that your car is due for a service but you're just not getting around to it. All of this mental clutter as well, your things weighing you down on a daily basis, are kind of your ones that fly under the radar. You don't realize that's
like
also
everything
contributing
you just mentioned is giving me anxiety already. Because they're all applicable to me, and I'm pretty sure they're applicable to everyone listening. Like every example you just painted there is stuff that people are permanently juggling. Because those things come around.
Visiting the in-laws.
Visiting in-laws. We have to go back. We have to go see them. It's been 6 months, It's about that, like, it's on that trigger pull time. We have to do it. And like car services and paperwork and admin and getting your life insurance in place, checking in with your physical health check once a year. All of those things fall to the wayside because they don't feel priority like, they don't feel like I can put them off for today. I just need to kind of breathe and get through the day and get my work done, and maybe, spend some time with my family, and then tomorrow I'll have a look. And eventually you do that often enough, you start piling up this massive boulder above your head and this weight on your shoulders that's literally dragging you down. And just, I find it almost incapacitating at sometimes. Sometimes there's just areas in your life where you find, wow, I've got so many loose ends. I've got so many things that I need to tie up and get done, and I just can't find the time to do it. And that's pretty much what this episode is going to be about, is where do you start? How do you address those things? And how do you actually mentally and physically declutter? I think from a physical perspective, the answer is pretty obvious. But when it comes to mentally decluttering, I firmly believe that half of my personality and what I'm going to be like to other people that day depends on how open my mind is to the here and now, and how much of my mind is occupied in clutter and things that I'm still busy processing or figuring out or trying to get done.
Yeah.
And that pretty much determines the outcome of how nice or how bad I'll be that day towards other people, or how nasty, or not just nasty, but how agitated I'll come across.
Exactly.
It's because I just have so much going on, but I'm actually not taking any measures to do anything about it. I just pile on more stuff to do, you know.
I love the fact that you mentioned that, because and actually want to quickly go into some research here, because this is really going to isolate why it is that we're addressing this topic here tonight, right? Is we have to understand that, yes, okay, we all have clutter in our lives, but why is it important? Why doesn't it warrant an entire episode and for us to actually address this, right? So here's a couple of interesting facts, right? So there was actually a study that I came across now recently in preparation for this, because I really wanted to understand, what effect does this clutter have on our lives? Why is it that I love being organized? Why is it that I hate clutter in my workspace, but in other areas of my life, I don't really mind it? Physical clutter or mental clutter. But here's an interesting study, right? So they said here that, and this is from webmd.com, they said that untidy environments often increase stress for most people. Now, yes, of course, we just mentioned it, that you feel agitated, you feel anxious walking into the garage and you see this clutter. But listen to this. In one study, they say, women who described their homes with positive language had lower levels of the stress hormone cortisol than women who described their homes as cluttered and unfinished. Right? So how crazy is that? Because there's actually something happening in your body, the stress hormone cortisol that spikes when you describe your home, or when you think about images of your home being cluttered, versus people who actually see their homes as neat and tidy and all of that, right? But here's the crazy part. There was another study that actually found that your organized environments are typically linked to healthy choices. However, some disorderly environments could actually promote creativity and fresh ideas. Now, this I don't really understand too well. I was like, I don't really see how that can spike creativity. Maybe it's the way that you maneuver around, how you still get your work done with all of the distractions. You have to get quite creative with that. But here's the interesting fact, right? The main reason why this warrants an episode is because they say the benefits of decluttering include things like better focus, of course. I can imagine this, because just think about your workspace. I actually have a flash drive sitting on my desk here in the home office, and it's been chilling there for more than 2 weeks. I don't know. I had to copy something sometime, and you have no idea how distracting that exactly is. You're in a meeting, you're having a conversation with someone, and you start fiddling with it, and you start playing.
Becomes a fidget toy.
Yeah, exactly. And that all of a sudden, breaks your focus, or you zone out completely and you forget what someone just said. So yes, I can see how it promotes better focus, right? Here's the other thing: higher self-esteem. And this makes a lot of sense to me, because when you're organized, when you declutter your environment or your home environment, or
it's
you
something to be proud of.
Yeah, or even if you spend a Saturday just cleaning your own house, for a change. If you've got a maid that comes in every now and then, just you're organizing and decluttering. No, but organizing, spending a Saturday morning to say, today I'm going to organize my garage, or today I'm going to do my filing. It is a great feeling. It is an amazing feeling. All of a sudden you feel like you've got control of your own life.
You know what? It's one of those things when you actually, so you just mentioned if you've got a maid and they do it. Yes, that's one thing. The funny thing is I'm very fortunate. I've got a housemate that helps me 3 times a week. To clean everything. You know how quickly I dirty the place up just because I didn't have to make it clean?
Yes, yeah.
But when you do it yourself, damn, if my kid comes in there and they just take out a book and leave it on the table, I immediately want to whip them.
But why do you think our parents forced us to clean our own rooms, dude?
Exactly. And I promise you, there's something that feels accomplished when you tidied up for yourself, and you feel proud, and you feel like, this is my space, I'm taking control of this space. Absolutely. And that is an empowering feeling. I mean, you'll know from when we used to work together, I'm that dude that would walk into the office every Monday, go grab a screen cleaner detergent, I'll grab a table detergent. I'll get 2 different cloths, one for the screen, one for the table. I'll wipe my desk, I'll wipe my screens, and I'll start working. And I promise you, I can't start a week differently. And It's because I could completely and utterly almost focus, and I was proud of it. Like, that's my little workspace. Now, the funny thing is, open one of my desk drawers and see what it looks like inside there.
I have.
It's a mess, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I would probably find, I don't know, the keys to life existence inside of my desk somewhere. The point is not how your process works for being organized or cluttered or decluttered. The point is that you should not be able to sit, like you just said about the flash drive on your desk. I know exactly what you talk about. That one thing on the desk that you kind of, hinker towards when you're in a boring meeting or whatever, and lo and behold, before you can say something, you find yourself fidgeting with this flash drive, or fidgeting with, I'm a pocket knife guy, so I always have a pocket knife somewhere that I can flick open and close the whole time, listening to someone else babbling along. But the point is, you want to have a space, and this is just for a work perspective, but I think that's a very good example, because if you can get it right in your work environment, chances are you're going to get it right in your bedroom, your house, everywhere else. And the point is anxiety. It's going to help you lower anxiety, which increases your ability to focus. And that increases mental strength, mental focus, mental capacity in order to actually get things done.
Yep.
Now, obviously, from a physical decluttering perspective, I think we've covered enough. I think we all know what that means, and I think we've all felt that feeling of having a completely uncluttered environment. More importantly, and I think this is probably what we need to emphasize on for the rest of the episode, is talking about mental decluttering.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This, I think, this is almost like the demons that no one sees, That's the little war that's always going on in your head. No one knows about it. No one knows your story. They don't walk in your shoes. They don't know all the things that you are fighting off in your brain and in your mind, and things that are piling up. Now, me and you, we listen to a lot of the wisdom from Mr. Deepak Chopra. So I don't know if we've ever sent a shout out to his work, but he's a wonderfully fascinating person. He's got a very calm demeanor about how he goes about everything. He's extremely good at explaining and isolating and showcasing the benefits of being mindful in life and in everything that you do. He did a bit of a write-up around mental declutter and what that basically means. But mental decluttering basically means that there's stuff going on in your head. It really doesn't matter what that stuff is. It might be a fight that you just had with your wife. It might be a family feud that's been going on for long that you know how to resolve, but there's just no one's taking any action to resolve it. It might be that you are busy applying for a home and you are super worried about everything falling in place and finances being approved and things like that. It might be financial things that's going on in your head. It might be career-driven problems that you are worried about, etc. So it's either permanently focusing on negative thoughts, things that can go wrong. And I think I mentioned this in a previous episode, but it seems as if for every negative feeling or thought, it's almost like you need to get 15 positive thoughts to kind of drown that negative thought out. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, I've definitely seen that. Yeah,
exactly. And it's super strange. Like, negative just seems to trump positive every day of the week. You can have the best life with the best kids, with the best dog, going to the best schools. Not the dogs, obviously the kids. Maybe the dogs too. But then you can have one problem in your finances and it kind of drowns out all of your happiness. It's super, super unfortunate, and it's really unfair. But anyways, worrying about things that's usually outside of your control as well. I think we spoke about this in a previous episode as well, where I mentioned that I've learned this very, very difficult to learn skill. Actually, I haven't perfected the art, but I'm trying these days to not stress and worry too much or give things space in my life and in my time that I can do nothing about.
Yeah.
Imagine all of us have to continuously stress about COVID. I think we all stressed in the beginning. Most of us got over it, and now we're continuing with our lives. We realize that this is here to stay, etc. But I promise you, there's probably still people out there that's so threatened by existential risk and things like pandemics that they are paralyzed by it.
Yeah.
And it's just nothing you can really do about it. There's obviously the purists that will say, yeah, you can start a movement and create awareness and all of those fluffy things. But at the end of the day, there's really nothing much you can do about it. He talks about holding on to negative emotions and experiences, including resentment, past hurt, anger, and sadness. We've spoken about this in episodes before.
That's a very good one, yeah.
Unresolved issues. Dude, I think all of us have gone through some area in your life where you either caused harm to someone or they caused harm to you, and you still have pain or hurt or resentment or sadness or shame and blame for yourself or the person. Those are just things that are mentally killing you.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point there, Leon. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Even if you have a look at just holding on to grudges, right? I think so many of us, it's weird, man, because...
And we all have them.
Yeah, we've been out of school for such a long time, but don't you remember a time, even years, maybe in some cases decades, that you still hold on to a grudge because of something that someone said to you or did to you in school?
I still do.
Yeah, exactly. And it's decades later, man. Like, we don't ever want to admit this to ourselves, but I'm pretty sure, and I've encountered so many people who still hold on to grudges of, people that they used to deal with in their past work experience or the previous company, but even dating back to as far as high school.
You know what's worse? I've actually seen people that were somehow duped or maybe insulted so badly for one thing. Maybe they were overweight in school. Maybe they had acne. I've seen grown-ups that have faced these like really bad comments and things in school time that now still have major insecurities and bad self-image of themselves because of things that happened in school. And the funny thing is you usually outgrow these things, so none of those people still exude those aspects, like maybe acne or obesity, whatever it might be. Most of them are now outgrown those things, but they still remember those days, that person, the day, the time of day, what they had for breakfast, what they were wearing. They can probably tell you in detail what happened that day. And it's just, these are all small little things that if you add them together, they become this huge weight that's on your shoulder.
It really is. I think I've experienced this in the past as well, where I had this one specific kid in high school who was... let's just call it as it is, a proper bully, like just really going around throwing his weight around and all of that. We had a massive falling out, beat me up a couple of times and all that. Fast forward years later, I'm like, obviously I still always held that grudge. And the one day I actually bumped into this kid, and it was in a local park. I was chilling with friends, having a braai or something like that. And he came up to me and he's like, "Oh, yes, sir, please, can I have $20 or something like that?" And then he recognized me, and he was instantly like, "Mono, is that you?" And instantly, he said, I was like, "Dude, I don't even know who you are or anything." And he told me his name and all that. And instantly I remembered him. And he said to me, "I'm so sorry that I was the biggest douchebag in school. I had so much stuff going on at home. I had so much going on in my life, and I had so many insecurities, and I had to just take that out on other people. But I realized years later that it wasn't the right way to act in those type of situations, and to take it out on other people. And I carried that along with me for years afterwards, up until that day, and instantly I could just let it go. I could completely just declutter my mind from that full experience. I think it is so important, Leon, to actually do not just the physical decluttering, because I think those two are they sort of dovetail into one another, right?
They do.
It's like if you declutter your physical space, whether that is your room, your home, your workspace, your office, or your cubicle even, I feel that instantly you feel that you've got so much control over your physical world and what's happening in your life day to day. Less distractions, you feel in control of all of that, and instantly you want to get more control, because isn't that sort of doesn't that tie into the feel-good chemicals, the dopamine?
Yes, exactly.
That spikes all of a sudden because you've accomplished something now and you feel good about that. So it sort of snowballs into the mental declutter as well. But it is absolutely interesting to focus on the importance of decluttering, the fact that you all of these benefits that rest within the decluttering in and of itself. Leon, absolutely interesting. I think it's time for the real life tips. You're just getting better at this. For
I'm practicing
today.
my beatbox in the shower, man. Yes, I'm getting
like every
good.
day. Every time. I'm so eager to hear what you're going to come up with. Yeah. So time for the real life tips, Leon. And what we're going to be doing is, now that we understand the importance of physical declutter, and now that we understand the importance of mental declutter and how these two things tie in, the benefits of it, let's find out how exactly can we go about decluttering. Now, Leon, you've gone through multiple exercises, so you're actually the best person to ask about physical decluttering. But if you have some tips on mental decluttering, I'm going to hand this over to you. Share some tips, drop some knowledge. Last week, you definitely took the tip crown. You dropped some really good ones. So I'm expecting nothing less from you this week, Leon. Hit us with your tips.
Yeah, so for once, look, I'm going to definitely claim the tip crown this week. I've got so many tips here. And
getting cocky
I need to,
now. Hey?
I'm gonna just say it out right now. So there's a lot of what we've just spoken about, and I think it's quite obvious of what those things are. So we've let quite a bit of space open for talking about tips and how to actually address how to get through to decluttering. Now, as I mentioned, there's a lot of knowledge out there. There's a lot of things that you can just Google in order to find out exactly what you need to do. But I've kind of broken it down to the things that I feel are very, very effective at helping you find a way and time to declutter. Now, the one thing is, and this is going to shock you, because we spoke about my bad sleeping habits.
Yeah.
And I've improved those sleeping habits over the last couple of weeks. And it's weird how sleep, I want to call it underrated, but not underrated from like someone wrote something about underrated, but underrated from a Leon's it's underrated version. I've noticed that when I sleep more, many things, apart from just being alert and cognizant and able to focus, many other things kind of sorts itself out and gives me time to. I don't know if you maybe subconsciously organizing your life during your sleep or whatever, but I would wake up sometimes from good sleep and just wake up completely having sorted out some issues in my head and having just a new fresh angle on things that were bothering me, or waking up. It's almost like every day it feels as if I can wake up with a new perspective on certain small issues, like not everything in life, but few things.
That's interesting, because I actually did read or hear something somewhere where they did mention that this is probably the reason the saying exists, sleep on it. Because there's something that actually happens with your mind discarding all of the unnecessary, not just the unnecessary information, but also letting go of the emotion tied into a lot of your decision making or stress and all of that kind of stuff. So whatever is important stays behind and moves into the next day's memory. And that's how you start resolving a lot of, or addressing a lot of issues. Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Have you ever left a work day where you had 3 or 4 pressing matters, and for some reason that day you couldn't resolve all four? Maybe there were 2 that you couldn't resolve. You almost feel that entire evening, making dinner, supper, you can't speak to your wife. She's like, where are you? You're not here. You're always like there, still at work, trying to sort those things out. How many times have you woken up the next morning and you solved both problems in your sleep?
Almost instantly, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
Every single time.
Or even just responding to a difficult customer or a difficult email or something like that.
Everything.
And you're just like, I don't know how I'm going to respond to this.
Correct. Now that's tip 1. Get sleep.
Love it.
All right. Cool. How and where and how often and for how long? I don't have the answer to all of those things. Make sure that you get in enough sleep. It's somehow just have a way to go to those subconscious things that are bearing you down and help you sort them out. It's super effective. The next thing kind of ties into it. Something that's better than sleep while you're awake is meditation. So it's almost like going into almost into the same state of serenity as you have with sleep, but doing it completely alert is meditation. if you are, and meditation is something that I kind of never understood. I was a naysayer. I was like, no, man, this seems like a complete waste of time. I think I've even said it on the show. And I know that there's good in it because I know a lot of people are behind it. I just always thought I'm not the guy for it. And I must still admit, I don't get through to it as much as I want to. But every time where I feel completely flooded, I'll go and try and do some meditation. And if you can get meditation done correctly, and everyone that does meditation knows exactly what I mean about, you'll know when meditation works. You'll instantly realize, like, wow, I just went into like real proper meditation that time around. But that gives you almost a third person view of all your surroundings, physical and mental, and almost as if you then are a marionette and you can kind of put the little boxes in its place and work things out very systematically and very effectively. And when you come out of that state, you'll immediately know what to do. It's extremely profound when it works. It's super difficult. You have to practice meditation. Everyone will tell you that. You can't just go take one class on Headspace and you're going to instantly get full meditational power out of that. You'll enjoy the first session if you're into it, but it will take like a week to feel, wow, I think I just went into like a bit of a trance there. And I promise you, those moments also allow you a lot of time and space to actually address the issues. The second, my third tip, I've only got 4, so I'm not going to keep this too long. I've got 4 tips. There's a lot of other tips, but there's 2 more that are extremely, extremely important that I want to actually quickly go over. It's 2 things. Set priorities and reduce multitasking. And this is something I suck at. I don't set priorities because my life is so busy. I don't even have time to set priorities and lists and things like that. But go and isolate the things that are super important. Forget about the things that are not important. The things that are not important, if they are actually important, they'll eventually become top priorities, right? So if it's something that you have to get to, but you don't need to do it now, eventually it's going to become pressing enough that you have to do it. So move those things to the side and set your priorities straight and only focus on the things that are extremely important, like burning houses that you need to extinguish right now. And forget about the other things, because that is what is actual mental clutter. It's other stuff that you still need to do. And reduce the multitasking factor. Now, this is something that, again, I suck at. I want to do 1,000 things all day. And then I do everything half-assed, and most of my work that I put out, and not just work in my like physical sense of like my career, everything I do feels haphazard and half-assed, like it's not properly done.
That's insane, because it's almost, the way that I picture it as you describe it is almost like a browser tab, right? So you've got, or a browser window. So imagine you've got your browser open and you've got Facebook and so it's multitasking, but the program needs to remember that you're still on this website, you're still on that webpage, you're still on this webpage. And to me, that also feels like mental clutter. It's like I'm doing a little bit of this, but I constantly have to put a pin in it and then quickly jump to this task, put a pin in that, jump to the next task. And now all of a sudden you're flooded with these little pins that you have to go back to the whole time. And that's not effective. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
exactly. And that's the thing. If you start multitasking, in my opinion, you start diluting the quality of every single aspect of everything that you're busy with. Focus on one thing at a time. The most, I call them burning houses. So the most, I don't know, flaming Lamborghini burning houses, get them done first and then move on to the next thing so that you can do it proper. If you split it across 5 things and you dilute your energy and your, focus and effort and quality over 5 things, all 5 things will get done, but they might get done poorly. And the last tip, and this is probably the best thing I've ever seen in my life. This is probably the tip that I'm going to immediately start. And I didn't get this tip from myself. These are, research topics after all. But think about this for a second. Schedule time to worry.
That's insane.
Right? that was like a proper mic drop moment again. Thanks, Mr. Deepak Chopra. But schedule time to worry. If you find that you are permanently worrying about things, and that's things that's me. I permanently have worries in my head. about many things. It's not like life-threatening stuff. It's just, I don't know, like career things, children things, accomplishments, things that I want to still do in life and I can't get there and blah, 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 blah. You know, we're always worrying. Stop doing that. Like, focus on the now, get into the now, give your full attention, don't multitask. But then if you feel there are enough things to still be a little bit worried about, go every day and say from 5 till 6 in the morning, or 5 till 6 in the evening, or wherever, it doesn't matter. For 1 hour, I'm going to worry. I'm going to pull these things to the surface. I'm going to talk to them, address them, see what other steps I can take towards maybe getting some of these worries out. Which of them can I address? Which of them are pie in the sky dreams and I can't really stress about them too much now, and start whittling down that worry list. But give that 1 hour space if you want to cry or scream or cuss or swear, or talk to a priest or speak to a friend, whatever's necessary. But give it its 1 hour in a day of sunlight to let itself out, and then shut it down.
Wow.
And this is going to take practice.
Yeah.
This is going to take mindfulness and practice, mind over matter to get this done. But that, I think, and I haven't tried this, this is a fresh tip for me as well. But I think that can change your life.
That is insane. That is indeed a mic drop tip, man. Honestly, I think I've never thought about it like that. It's like we always try and avoid worrying, at least me, man. Like I always tell myself, don't worry about it, don't stress about it. Everything's going to work itself out eventually. You just believe in fate, you are where you're supposed to be.
Exactly. Keep suppressing.
Exactly, yeah. And you just keep pushing and pushing, and you'll eventually end up where you want to be, but you can't suppress that feeling. We touched a little bit on this in the last episode as well. The suppression doesn't help. It doesn't resolve any issues. So giving it its time and space to actually manifest itself, and then you can stress about that and worry about it, but give it its dedicated time. That's beautiful, man. I love that. So 4 tips in there. I think from my side, so you came in from a mental declutter, which is beautiful, because the 2 tips that I'll quickly drop in here is really primarily just focusing on physical declutter.
Cool.
Now, the physical declutter that has worked for me, and somewhere in my life I started adopting this maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. I decided, I cannot live like this. I need to feel that I've got more control over my life. And if I declutter my physical workspaces and home environment, I feel better about myself. I feel in control of my life, right? So I discovered something that really, really helped a lot. And it was pretty crazy when someone told me this is, have you used it in the last year? If you haven't, chuck it away. And we're both in tech, and I've probably gathered a ton of boxes of computer parts and PC spares and stuff in case I'm going to need them one day. And if somebody came up to me and told me, you got to chuck that away if you haven't used it in the last year, the first time I heard that, I was like, there is no way. But one day is one day, and I decided, I cannot live like this anymore. I have to chuck these things. I ended up doing it. The worst thing happens is Murphy's Law. A week after you chuck it, you find a use for it. But you know what? Deal with it. Deal with it when that happens. But employing that specific mindset of saying, if you haven't used it in a year, chuck it because you're not going to use it. All right, that worked for me in terms of physical declutter. My second tip is in terms of just habits, just basic morning habits. So something that has always worked for me, especially working from home, seeing as that we started the topic on, this might become the new norm. We might spend more time working from home than actually working from the office. If that resonates with you, then this is what I do. The mornings, every single morning when I come in, I organize my desk. It's something that even if there's something a little bit out of place, that one thing might become 2 things, might become 3 things ending up on your desk or in your environment or in your office space or in your cubicle, even if you're at work. Every single morning, the first thing I do is I organize my desk. Before I get started with anything, no matter how stressed I am about the day, no matter how urgent my tasks are for that morning, I take 2 minutes and I literally just organize my desk. All right. If that is just organizing your home in the morning, if you're working from home, you're getting the dishes done or something silly like that, those things really, really add up and they really do help a lot. So just basic habits, morning habits, afternoon habits. Maybe if you wrap up your last tasks for the day, send your last email, just tidying up and organizing your desk. Simple things. but it really does add up at the end of the day.
It does.
Leon, I loved your tips. Those are my 2 only tips. So just to quickly summarize, we dropped 6 tips in here. I'm going to quickly recap. Number 1, sleep.
This was a tip.
This is a tip heavy episode. But we did this for a purpose, right? Because it's not just about understanding the reason behind it, but it's also understanding how can you apply it to your life. How can you fix it, right? So 6 tips in here. Number 1, sleep is extremely important. Number 2, meditation. If you're not into meditation, get into meditation, or at least try it out, because that could actually help.
Give it a go. I was a complete naysayer myself. I couldn't. I thought it was a way to. It almost felt like an excuse to sit and do nothing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
it feels unnatural.
I spoke in a lot of I spoke in many of the episodes how time is currency and it's finite, and you can't burn through time by sitting around and meditating and sleeping. I now. I almost want to swallow my old ways and say that actually sleep and meditation, those 2 things go really well hand in hand, and they buy you more than you actually lose in the time that you have to spend doing them.
Absolutely. All right, so those are the first 2. Number 3, set priorities and reduce multitasking, because that doesn't work for anyone. Then we've also got number 4, which is schedule time to worry. Absolute mic drop tip there. Schedule your time to worry. Whether you like it or not, you will stress out about life. And just if you set aside some time for you to actually sit down and worry about everything all at once, you're batching everything, and that's awesome, right? Number 5, physical declutter. Anything that you haven't used in the last year, get rid of it. Simple as that. No questions asked. This works for me. And it also works if you're moving around a lot, if you're renting and you know that you're not going to stay there for the rest of your life. That's going to help you immensely, right?
It works.
Number 6, work on your morning habits, or just habits in general, right? Organizing in the morning, organizing in the evening when you wrap up your daily tasks. Those are your 6 tips. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Physical and mental declutter. How to free up your mind to focus on what is important. I hope you guys have derived some great value from this episode. I've certainly enjoyed recording this, Leon. Physical and mental declutter, man. Extremely important. So if you enjoyed this episode, remember to go ahead and rate and review us. We're really trying to expand this show. We will love to see you guys back here. If this was the first episode that you've joined, welcome to the community. Feel free to reach out to us. We're here. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your feedback. With that being said, I look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. This is me signing off, Mono.
We're joined by Leon as usual. Thank you so much. Very, very nice episode. I'm actually going to go and try and apply some of those new tips and things in my life this week. So I challenge you, do the same and get in touch with us. Tell us about your experiences and what you like about the show. With that said, I'm Leon signing off. We'll chat to you guys next week with another good episode. Stay safe. Cheers.
Bye. What's up, guys and girls? If you've derived some great value from our show thus far, please take a second to rate and review us on the platform that you're tuned in on. This will really help us to grow the show and reach more and more people, to spread the positivity and change more and more lives. So it will literally just take you a second to rate and review us, and who knows, perhaps you could directly be responsible for changing someone's life today. We look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Until then, cheers.